Hi everyone, my name is Molina Parker. I'm going to be starting out this pilot program for the virtual Rolling Res Arts program. And today we'll be talking about doing brick stitch earrings. And I'm going to keep my phone on here in case you have any questions. And I'm an enrolled member of the Oglala Sioux tribe. I'm also a Northern Cheyenne. And yeah, so let's get started. We're going to be doing some brick stitch earrings. I'm trying to work with supplies that a lot of beaders already have in their arsenal. And I'm going to be using 3 different color bugle beads. And then for the fringe, I'm going to be using these check glass beads. And maybe some charms, we'll see. So this is the earring we'll be making today. And just as an FYI, if you start doing brick stitch more often, you can find these graph sheets online. I think I got these off of Etsy. So you can graph your patterns here before you go. A lot of people, like myself, just kind of wing it, but this is fun for more complicated designs. So to start out with a brick stitch, for the main part, you want these to last, and you want to use a very sturdy thread so that they don't break, because these are glass and they will cut your thread, especially if you're weaving in and out of them like we'll be doing today. So I like to use a 4-pound fire line when I'm working with these, and then I'll use a size 12 pony needle. As you can see, this one's been used quite a bit, so it's bent. And no knot. I'm going to show you how to do this so that your thread will be hidden. Okay, so this is 9 beads across, and it's brown, so I'm going to start with 2 brown. I'm just going to pick up 2, bring them down to the end of your thread, like so, and then I make a loop, and I usually do a double or a triple knot, and I'll show you how I hide it when we start the next row. I think I'll do a triple knot here. Looks like I did put a knot in there, so I'll just clip it off. And I use, I got these at Cabela's. They're a fishing line scissor, and they're really good at cutting the fire line. They kind of have a serrated edge, so it grabs the thread and cuts it, and it's not moving around or fraying. Okay, so you're at the top here, you got this little knot, and then you want to come down through one of the bugle beads. It doesn't matter which side. And I usually hold on to the earring the entire time I'm working. So 2, you're going to pick up another bead. See how your thread is coming out this end here? You want to come down through the opposite side. And that'll bring the bead right next to it. And now your thread is here. We want it here, so we're going to come back up. And we're going to repeat that process until we get the 9 on the bottom here. Okay, so your thread's coming out this side, we're going to come back down through the other side. Get that bead up there. See? Come back down. Do it again. Come back up. See? And we'll be repeating this process through all the 9 rows. So we're at 5. Thread's coming out this way and coming back up through the bottom. And back down. There's 6. And 7. Thread's coming out down here, coming down through the top again. 7. Here's 8. And 9. Okay, and now we're going to start a new row. And to start a new row, you start with 2, just like you started at the beginning. So I'm going to pick up the 2 gold, bring it all the way down. Whoops. Okay. Alright, so you have the 2 here, they're sitting on top of that first row, and we want them to sit next to each other. So we're just going to come up through the bottom of the first bead, the bead closest to the first row. See that? I have 2, they're just hanging out. You want to come back down through this second one. And I don't know if you could see this on the camera, but there's stitches on top of these rows here. You want to go through the second set of stitches. See that? I don't know if you can see them here. Let's see if I can get closer. Thread it through and then come up. And you started your second row. Okay, get this bead, go in through the next set of stitches, all the way through, and back up. So those stitches that are sitting at the top of this row are what's going to secure the row above it. And you'll repeat that process all the way through this row. This is very similar to peyote stitch in that you're doing one bead at a time. And I find it relaxing. Some people find it tedious, but I really like to do brick stitch and peyote stitch late at night after my baby's gone to bed, and it's like a form of meditation, I guess. This was actually the first stitch I ever learned how to do that my mom taught me. It's how to make these kind of earrings back in the mid-80s. Okay. Alright, now we've gotten back to this area where this tail was hanging out from the beginning. And I don't necessarily like to cut it. I feel like it's more secure if you thread it through the next row. So what I'll do is grab this last remaining bead, bring it down, and it's going to be woven into that last stitch. And I like to just kind of pull it out here. I'm going to thread it through the end here. So we pull that down, can pull it back up, put my needle through, and then to start the next row we're going to bring 2 down. And the next color is brown, so we'll grab our 2 brown, like so. And then, I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here, but that tail thread I'm going to put through these 2 beads. Just like that. We'll come up through the bottom like we did in the previous row. Thread it through. And now that tail is, that little tiny piece of a tail is sitting out here. So what I like to do, come down through here, get it in that stitch, and then I'm just going to tie a small knot with this one. That way I know that these earrings are secured, that tail stitch is woven in, and it won't be unraveling anytime soon. It's nice and tight. And if you come back up through that bead and pull it, now that knot's somewhere in the middle here. So then I'll take my fly fishing scissors again and then just clip that tiny tail off. Yeah, it's gone. Perfect. Toothpaste on my finger. I was like, what is that? It's toothpaste. Okay. Alright, so this row is going to have 7 beads. Whip through that. Once you figure this out and you get going, you get to be really fast at it. Because you're just repeating the same steps over and over again. So I remember there was a point in time when I was younger and my mom gave me an order. I think I had like 20 of these to finish up. I got to be really fast at it. And that's just something that comes with practice. So when you're starting out, I like to say it's important not to give up right away, because the more you do it, the better and the faster you get at it. And then, I mean, that's with any art, right? You keep doing it over and over and over again until you get it right and you figure out your own little tips and tricks. So these are just little things I've learned along the way. When I first started doing brick stitch, I don't even know if they had fireline back then. If they did, I didn't have access to it. So I was working with this Nymo thread to brick stitch with, and that constant going in and out of these beads, even when your cord is waxed, can cause your thread to fray. So I was constantly changing my thread. It was so annoying. And so it's worth it to invest in these more expensive materials, because it's going to make it easier for you in the long run, and it's going to be less frustrating. So like this 125 yard spool cost $28.95, and I think I got it at Beadweaver in Santa Fe the last time I was there. And I find it's a really good thread to use for edging, peyote stitch, brick stitch. I don't necessarily like to applique with it, but it's good for things like that, in my opinion. You could do whatever you want though. Just find what works for you. There's other wax threads out there like a Miyuki. That's also pretty pricey. But I find that frays after a while. We're getting close to the top, and I'll show you how I close out the loop on top. And that's the other good thing about this thread. When you get to the top loop here, it helps it so that it doesn't break over the years, because this is going to get a lot of play. And I found that this thread doesn't break easily, and it doesn't cut easily either, so you won't be doing repairs as often for people. There'll always be that occasional repair that slips through. Some people are rough on their jewelry. Okay, we're on the 4th row. And the great thing about brick stitch is you can use almost any size beads to brick stitch with. You don't have to use beagle beads. you could use whatever you want. You can make designs in there. You can do different shapes. It's just a fun stitch to know. I personally think it's pretty. And it reminds me of my mom. She used to wear a lot of these back in the 80s. So I have fond memories of a lot of women wearing earrings like this when I was younger. Oops. Including myself. Okay. So I've reached the top of the pyramid here. It's very sturdy. Doesn't have a lot of play. And that's what I like in my beads. I like this part to be pretty solid, and I like the fringe to have all the drama. And I'm just going to pull some beads from this hank. Let's see, I did 10 on this one, so I'll do 10 on this. 4, 8, 10. Now here's how I do my top. I do it just like the other rows. I pull it down, and I go through the bottom 5, like that, and then I'll come back down through here. And like I mentioned before, I don't like knots in my work, so I'll show you what I do to make sure that this doesn't come unravel. I'm just going to go through this one more time so I know that it's nice and secure. That means that I'll have gone through these beads 3 times now. Okay, I'm going to come out on the second row here with the 3 beads, and I'm just going to kind of weave through a couple of these rows here. And I'm actually going to change the thread for the fringe. Like I said, I like my fringe to have movement, and this thread doesn't give you a lot of movement. As you can see in this earring, it's really stiff. So I'm actually going to switch out to my Nymo thread for the fringe, and that's just another trick I learned along the way. Okay, so I'm going to clip this thread. I've already got my needle threaded over here with the Nymo. And I did put a knot on this one. Like I said, if you weave this one out in and out too many times, it's going to give, it's going to fray. So I like to put a triple knot at the end of this, and I'm just going to come up through just some random bead here. Oops, see, I pulled it through. Here's what I want to do. And I had double threaded this one. I'm going to do a knot like I did when I started here. See that? And I'll do a nice little knot that will also be hidden once I pull it through the bead. I should have had one ready to go. Now I look like I'm fumbling around here. There we go. Okay. So now when I come up through this bead, that knot is going to end up in here so that we can't see it. Maybe it'll work. There we go. See? The knot's gone. You can't see it. I'll just cut off the edge there. Then I'm going to come back down until I get to the base row. And for this fringe, I think I'll do a V shape on the bottom. I'm just going to do a simple fringe, nothing too complicated to start with. Okay, so now you can see I'm out on the bottom row here. And I'm just going to pick up maybe 20 beads. Let's see how that looks. And I like to use check beads on the bottom because they have those cuts in them, they sparkle. Okay, I'm going to do 28 to start with. And to get the V, I usually add an extra 3 beads for each row. That's why I like to use an odd number at the bottom if I'm going to do a V fringe, because you can come to a nice point directly on bead number 5 here. If I do an odd number row count on the bottom, I'll usually just do a straight across fringe. And you can do whatever kind of fringe you want. There's no rules on that. I've seen zigzags, the V, straight across. I've seen like a fishtail. You can do anything. And then I'm just going to add some bugle beads on the bottom for embellishment to give it a nice little whatever. See? And then I'm going to use a brass bead with my handy souvenir spoon here. Okay. So I'll put actually, I'm going to do it this way. Take those beads off. And I'm going to do a brass bead between each one. Just because I think it'll look nice. Oh yeah, that looks good. And I'll add a little... no, I won't. Yeah, no, I'm not going to add a charm. This is what I do when I bead. I can't make up my mind. And then when I figure it out, I just go for it. I'm going to do a little loop at the bottom, and I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to pick up 7 beads. You can do 7, 5, 3, whatever. It doesn't matter. So I have 7 beads, and I want to make a loop. So I'm not going to go through those 7 beads. I'm going to push them aside, and I'm going to go all the way up this row of beads I just laid down. Okay, then I go back up through that base bead. It's important when you're weaving through here to try not to use a thicker fire line than the 4 pound. If you use the, I believe it's a 6 pound, it could create less space in there for you to get your needle through, and you can cause your bead to break. So it's important to use a thinner fire line when you're doing the base so it goes through easily. And since I did 28, my next row will have 31. And I run my needle through as far as it'll go, and then I count it out. Just like that. So. Okay, got 31. I'll do the same little design on the bottom. Hope you all are doing well. I know it's difficult staying home all the time. We miss seeing our friends and going out to eat and going to Starbucks and shopping. We live way out in the country in Pine Ridge, so we're on lockdown right now, which is fine. But just makes things a little bit difficult. We have to get our mail in Hermosa. We probably won't be able to do so until after this lockdown is over. So all of my packages are just waiting for me to rescue them. Back up through the fringe. Sometimes, I don't know if you saw that, but if you don't pull it through tight enough, your thread will stick out. And it's important as you're going along and doing fringe or a peyote stitch or whatever it is you're doing, to just check your work every now and then, because I have the habit of just kind of blindly going through it and then realizing later I have like a thread sticking out somewhere that got caught. And then you have to learn how to snip it and learn how to tie it off in a way that doesn't compromise the design. Sometimes I'll just cut all of the fringe off and start over. I had to do that before. See, it's looking good. So 28, 31, I'm gonna go 34 here. I got my 34. I'll do my design again. So these earrings are just a lot of repetition. If you don't mind repetition, these are actually, I think they're fun to make. There's kind of a beauty in doing repetitive work like this for me. It's a lot of counting, so that's why I like to do it late at night when nobody's awake and people aren't talking to me, because I can lose count and I find that a little frustrating. And these are like fun to get you in that little zen mode. And I like to use a long needle when working on these, because then I'm not constantly weaving my needle in and out of this fringe. I can get through it in a couple passes. But you know, whatever works for you. Some people like working with short needles. There's no right or wrong way to do a lot of this stuff. Oops, see, I got wrapped around. So just make sure you tie it through. And you don't want to pull your fringe too tight. It's going to cause stress on the bead, and it'll cause them to kink at the end. So you want to make sure that you're constantly checking the tension on this so that it swings. If you do it too tight, it won't swing for you, and then these beads will start to kink like this. And for earrings like this, you want to store them either flat or hanging, because if you just throw them in your purse or something and you know it gets all bent out of shape, it'll keep that shape. So what you can do to fix it if that happens is to you can take rubber bands and put them against something secure, and then you could spray them, and then like with water, and then just let them sit for a few days and let that thread dry, and it'll help that to unkink that thread for you. Another little tip that I learned along the way. Okay, next we're going to do 37 beads. Okay, got my 37. These again. There have been times when I've been doing this, and you think you're doing the right design, and you finish and you realize you transposed the colors or put the wrong number of beads down, and it's really an exercise in patience when that happens. Okay, we got 15 minutes left. I'm going to try to finish this in that time. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to send me a message or through First People's Fund, and you can get the message to me. So you want to like the First People's Fund page and send questions and suggestions to info@firstpeoplesfund.org. Again, that's info@firstpeoplesfund.org. And I just want to thank them for allowing me to come on today and do this demonstration. Normally we're on the Rolling Res Arts Bus. We take it out or First People's Fund takes it out into the community here in Pine Ridge and Rapid City. And I'm usually an instructor on the bus. But obviously we can't do that right now with what's going on. So this is a nice little fun way to do it from home. Alright, now I lost count again. 28, 31, 34, 37. So this middle row is going to have 40. And I use this really cool traveling beading mat. I think I bought it at Michael's a few years back, but I think they still sell them. It's really neat because it has a locking lid cover. So if I'm working on something on the road, I just close the lid and lock it, and everything pretty much stays in place. I really like to work on these felt bead mats. I feel like it keeps them where I want them. When I was younger, my mom used to have me beading on saucers and the lids to ice cream gallon lids and just whatever. And so the beads were all over the place, and you had to be really good at pulling the right color out of the mix. And I like to bead in a neat way, so it used to be challenging for me. My OCD would kick in. So like here, keeps my beads nice and separated. And they don't move around when I shake the table. Then I put a no slip mat on the bottom so that when I'm working on a smooth surface, this doesn't move either. Because I'm notorious for flipping my trays. Alright, I'll show you how this looks, and then we'll start to wrap things up. I'm getting a signal here. I'll have to replace the thread anyway, so it's a good place to stop. I'll just repeat the process I did earlier that I showed you. And to end this thread, I'm just gonna weave it through. Probably not the second row here, but this third row. So you can kind of gauge when you think that thread's nice and secure. You obviously don't want to be able to pull it and have the thread come out. That wouldn't be good. So you're going to weave it through a few times. See? Keep getting stuck on this one. There we go. Well, you just gotta practice like with anything else. Do it every day for a month. It'll be really good. So cheesy. Okay, and it's nearly done. But we're calling time here in just a second. So I'll just show you kind of how it's starting to look. And then I'll decrease by 3 coming up on this side, so I'll have that nice V I was telling you about. And you can make these as big or as small as you want. When I was younger, I used to like to do a 5 base and do smaller earrings for my friends. But I think 9 looks really nice with the bugle beads. Alright, you want to check out the upcoming Rolling Riz Arts virtual art demonstrations and live performances. And who's up next? Michael Tubles on May 23rd, 7 p.m. Check him out. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to email First Peoples Fund and they'll forward it to me. And I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.